Alright, so after the success we've been having with the first four Tremors movies, before I get to the series, as I had said, this is when I had heard that a decline kind of started to happen. But I said that, I would still go in open-minded because we may not feel the same way. But, well, first off, I didn't realize, I haven't been realizing just how far apart these movies are. And I only realized after the fact that this was 11 years after 4, so apparently this was like some sort of planned relaunch, is what I looked into. And I can kind of see where they were going with that. Like, it's nice, that Michael Gross is still here and we're still kind of continuing the whole Burr thing. Like, it's only like if it goes a completely different, like, un-Burr focused direction, we might be in trouble, unless there's some, like, really good reboot or remake down the road, which isn't impossible, but this makes the prospect of anything like that feel very, very far away, or completely non-existent forever. But going into it, obviously one of the names we've been seeing consistently throughout this from the first one is S.S. Wilson, who was a consistent writer on this and a director of at least a couple of the previous movies. His name is like nowhere to be found at all. Instead, our director now is Don Michael Paul. And if you want to talk about where my expectations were, where it's like, kind of, if you hear something might not be great or it was the start of the decline or something, just kind of put it out of your head and kind of see it from your own perspective and take that. Um, that's how I felt at first, and then I was like, well, let's look up what Don Michael Paul has done. And I don't want to like hate on the guy or anything, but I will read you his filmography. So, while we had, like the previous writer of the original movie directing some of these, and Ron Underwood doing the original, who's done some great stuff, some very varied stuff, Don Michael Paul is responsible for Half Past Dead, a Steven Seagal movie, and Who's Your Caddy, a movie that was like at the top of IMDb's bottom 100 for a very long time. But going into the Tremors franchise, I'd said something that gave me pause that it has since proved me wrong was my just kind of disdain for the straight-to-video sequel and how very rarely they matter or have any quality whatsoever. Well, it just so happens the rest of Don Michael Paul's filmography is Lake Placid, the final chapter, Jarhead 2, Field of Fire, Sniper Legacy, Kindergarten Cop 2, Sniper Ghost Hunter, or Ghost Shooter, excuse me, Death Race 4, The Scorpion King Book of Souls, Jarhead Law of Return, and Bulletproof 2. As well as the rest of the Tremors movies from here on out, which is a great sign. So, I'm just gonna leave that at that. That's the expectation I went into this movie with. So, with that in mind, we now see Burt, right from the start, now doing a show pretty much by himself, where he's his own crew and everything, or most of his own crew. He's got like a camera guy at least. And he's doing a show called The Survivalist, where he does an off-the-grid thing. In fact, he's so incredibly off-the-grid that in the span of like 2 or 3 minutes, 2 people find him. One of which is one of our new main characters in Jamie Kennedy. And I don't want to hate on Jamie Kennedy either. I've loved him in plenty of stuff, and I highly recommend his YouTube channel, where he talks about all his time and like the industry when he was like in some really big movies and like the inner workings of that and how that all came to be, and it's really great and really informative. And he's super, super likable. But sometimes his presence in movies, he plays like kind of a certain type, like when he's hired you can tell the makers are going for a certain type of character. And that's when you expect, like, Jamie Kennedy in a straight-to-video movie, this is probably about what you would expect. And the fact that he's now first credited and Michael Gross gets the "and" credit was something that really worried me, because it made me unsure if Michael Gross is in the other movies, since I don't know for sure. But I mean, apparently it is like a continuation now, and it's going to be the 2 of them apparently. So that's like I had this horrible, terrible sinking feeling inside me when I realized what the title meant. There's like a big reveal to what the title means. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure how I felt about that. But the thing about, though, is that, like, not like knocking on Jamie Kennedy or the way he plays this character or anything, but like I said, it's the way the filmmakers approach this character, where, like, during the opening credits, he's on, like, you know, a mountain bike or something, and he's doing all the flips and all that, or whatever. And it's what makes that really funny is that it's almost like they're going for, like, a younger demographic, or at least a younger demographic that has since passed. Like, it missed the demographic it was going for with this stuff by, like, a decade, or more, even. And what makes that really funny is, and I don't think this is intentional or a meta sort of thing. I think it's just a fuck-up. When, Jamie Kennedy's talking to him about the fact that he's doing his own show now, and the way it's, like, you know, off the grid and stuff like that, his response to Bert is, "What are you going for a younger demographic?" And I feel like I don't think that's being self-aware. I think that's a lack of self-awareness. But and just in general, like, the much more flashy way that it's shot now, it's, and, like, the whole idea that it's supposed to be some sort of relaunch of the franchise. Yeah, but but what's funny about that is really the only way they seem to be going for that is Kennedy's character. Everything else is like an imitation of a Tremors movie. Because we've talked before about the effects and how we're hoping to hang on to the practical effects as long as they can before they fully embrace the CGI, because obviously the Shriekers and the Ass Blasters take CGI. But the Graboids you can still do practically, it seems. This one is kind of Ass Blaster heavy. So they're really going for the CGI, and you can tell that was probably based on, you know, well, we can use CGI, that's easier. Why they would go that route. Because having them all kind of in equal measure, with as much focus as possible on the Graboids themselves, feels like the right way to go, but this one kind of felt very leaning Ass Blaster most of the time. But I still commend this series for me being able to say Ass Blaster as if it's some, you know, known fact with a totally straight face. So they have pulled that off successfully. Yeah, the Graboids are here, but they're mostly unseen. I mean, which is something, because we talked before in the original movie about how they're basically the Shark and Jaws, and how it's more about the build-up to them, and then you only know shit's getting real when we finally see them. But this one you can kind of tell it's almost like for budgetary reasons or something. And we do get something practical occasionally. Like when they explode, it's clearly still practical, and there's one particular shot that's clearly CGI, and then we get like a close-up of it getting sliced, and you can tell that the slice appears to be a practical effect, and whatever comes out. Which is nice. So like, that whole thing of continuing to mesh the CGI with the practical is nice, but you can tell we are getting more CG heavy. And once again, I'm not just automatically saying CG is evil, but we are on a straight-to-video budget, so we're not going to be getting, like, you know, Dune-level CGI or something. So that's but as far as like the way they incorporate some of the kills, also, like the guy getting carried off, despite being CGI, looks pretty nice and looks relatively authentic, like I said, for the budget we're talking about here. And sometimes they do nice stuff, like, that you can, you know, build up, but not have to, like, use your budget. Like when we see just the shadow go across the ground when something's flying over. Stuff like that can be effective if you use it, which this does sparingly, unfortunately. But then there's other things where it's clear that they're covering up, I don't know if it's budgetary things or what it is, or just a lack of creativity in general. I don't know what the fuck that shower death scene was, where everything is, like, in close-up, and we're just flashing back and forth, and they're just, like, kind of writhing somewhat, and then it's just over. And we don't even really see much of the aftermath. That's like the first big death scene in the movie. So that's where you can kind of tell it's like, is this what we're in for? Like, because this is like showing you the signs of what you're in for can be very important, especially in a series like this. And when that's the call of this is what we're gonna get, that's kind of scary, and not in the good way. I think another problem this one has is the side characters, because we talked about one of the big things the Tremors franchise has going on that it always does really well is the side characters, their relationships with everybody, and this whole idea of giving this sort of community feel, and the whole banding together thing is like a strong part of like the first, apparently at least the first half of this franchise. And these aren't like weak characters necessarily. Like some of them, like they have a purpose. Like there's the girl with the arrows and stuff like that. But I didn't like remember any of their names. Not that that's always important, but it's I didn't really get that. Like it was hard to distinguish like who was related to who and how and stuff like that. And I just kind of, like, every time a character died, it was like I had to remember who they were. And it was like, oh, he was that guy from that one scene earlier, I think. And that's pretty much it. A huge distance from what we're usually dealing with the side characters. There's even one moment where a dude gets... There's like an ass blaster in the sky that blows up, and then the remains come down and crush a dude to death. A dude that's been in the movie up to this point. He wasn't just some person that walked in and out. And it was weird to see Bert have such like maybe I'm mistaken, because like I said, I'm watching these all for the first time. I don't know that I've seen Bert act so cold-blooded to the death of a human character. It was like he witnessed it happen, and he somewhat caused it, and he didn't give the slightest I mean, the character wasn't likable or anything. But Bert just didn't give the slightest shit of what had just happened right in front of him to this dude who was just dead. So that was I wasn't really sure how to take that. But on top of that, we do also have there's obviously badass Bert that is the expert at killing all these things, and another thing that's been consistent is comedy Bert on the other side, and we do get this bit that I could see working in a certain way when it's the whole Bert in the cage thing, which gets pretty out of hand after a while. But I like the idea of showing off comedy Bert, but also like showing off the whole survivalist thing, where it's like seeing Bert in like solitary confinement with the sun beating down on him is like the situation. It'd be interesting to see a survivalist like him to see how he gets out of it. But it's just purely a comedy bit. Like, it has almost hardly anything to do with survival, and anything that does, it's just turned into a piss joke. We get 2 piss jokes already from Bert himself, and then we get that extra piss joke with the lion, which is just like, what the fuck is this? We talked about finding a younger demographic. There you go. Like, that's the other side of that, I guess. That's just ridiculous. And then the Jamie Kennedy dragging him in the cage and them trying to play it up like this big comedic moment felt like some... Like, what was that fucking dumbass show with the dudes, with the... Like, Duck Dynasty, I think it was. It looks like some shit you would see there or something. And that's the direction they're going for the laughs. And, yeah, that's... I don't know how to feel about that. But there are some moments that are surprisingly dark. In a good way, despite all of this other stuff. Like, when Jamie Kennedy goes into the graboid nest is pretty freaky and kind of trippy. And then how it's almost like this... Not only is like this just endless pit of, like, hell, but like this almost mass grave kind of thing also is... maybe that's just my bones thing that I don't like. But that felt genuinely creepy and well done, and that whole set was really well done. And then, obviously, we have continued evolutions of the creatures here, with the graboid's tentacles can detach now. I had heard that was one of the times where, like, they're going to start jumping the shark as the evolutions get more and more outlandish. When they've been pretty steady up to this point, between the graboids going to the Shriekers and then the Ass Blasters and all that. And then it seems now they are just gonna, like, instead of doing like kind of new creatures as they evolve, it's more just like, oh, here's what we already had about the creatures, but now it's just like their own thing. So we're just doing the detached tentacles now. Bird even says something like, what's next? Graboids that talk. We've still got 2 movies to go from this director, so that actually kind of worries me that they would eventually go that route. Planet of the Apes, this is not, so hopefully that is not the case. But yeah, we also kind of have like a main villain of sorts here with the whole queen bitch thing. But it doesn't really feel like there was that much build up to that or enough to where it really felt like there was some big climax brewing. So when the climax got here, it did just kind of feel like another action scene. That didn't really have, like in the others, obviously, you know, the action scenes are all similar, but you got the sense when a climax was coming and when we had like 1 more left or 2 more left or something, and they were gonna do some big elaborate plan in order to, you know, outsmart the Graboids or something. This one is, I mean, like, it tries to have those moments where it goes big, but it just feels like another action scene, and it was almost like when they defeated the Queen Bitch, it was like, oh wait, I guess this is ending. And it's like, it didn't really, it's almost like, oh, the fact that this is ending kind of snuck up on me. So that's how well the climax was done. So, yeah, and then of course we hint at the whole Bert and Jamie Kennedy are actually... I'm trying to remember Jamie Kennedy's fucking name. I don't even remember. Travis? Is that right? We'll go with that. So apparently they are father and son, and that's going to be what these movies are, I guess. I'm pretty sure Jamie Kennedy's in the other 2. And I'm pretty sure he's at least in the next one. So we'll see where that goes, I guess, and see maybe they can find their chemistry along the way. I don't know, but right now it was just kind of the whole cliche. Oh, coming from 2 different places. One's the younger guy, one's the old, out-of-date guy. That whole thing. Nothing new there, but I feel like that whole cliche was never new. So I don't I don't know what else you can get out of it, but I'm assuming we're going to get a lot more of that in the next one, so we'll see where that goes, and we'll see if there's any new evolutions. I'm sure there will be. Any new big threat. Maybe one a little more, I don't know, climatic. But we'll see. But like I said, I don't want to completely, like, you know, jump on this thing. Like, I'm almost defiant of the decline starts here thing, because that's what I heard before, but I mean, that very well could be the case. And like I said, this director's filmography is not promising. So, we'll see what happens. But I guess I will leave this at this until then. And we'll get into all the other stuff, the new stuff, and then we'll come back to this for our 6th movie, and see if we get better or worse, or if we're just kind of on an even plane for a while here. Any of them they all seem equally likely, except maybe it'll be a little better. But maybe the bar is low, a little lower, to the point that we can jump off better, but maybe I'll regret saying that. So until we figure that out, and until I find out for myself, I think that's it.